Hello. Today we will discuss on the topic pituitary gland. It is under the classes of endocrine system, and we'll discuss this topic with the help of a PowerPoint presentation. So let's go to the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. So if we follow the PowerPoint presentation of pituitary gland, we'll discuss this topic with the following objectives: introduction, location of the pituitary gland, parts of pituitary gland, basic anatomy we expect and we need to know for pituitary gland, what are the hormones secreted, functions, and conclusion. So to start with the introduction, if we want to say the pituitary gland in a single sentence, we must describe it as an ovoid neuroglandular body. This gland, pituitary gland, is suspended from the floor of the third ventricle by one stalk, pituitary stalk, which is termed as infundibulum. The gland itself, the pituitary gland itself is so small, it is about the size of a pea. This gland is resting in a small bony cavity which is termed as sella turcica, which is a name given for the similarity with Turkish saddle. And this gland is superiorly covered by a dural fold which is termed as diaphragma celli. Diaphragma celli. This gland, if we want to say from our school days, we knew that it controls the actions of or functions of many endocrine glands. So it was otherwise termed as master gland, the master gland. But from our knowledge of its control, its function is as it is controlled by the hypothalamus, the term of master gland should be questioned. So popular term of master gland, we should keep it in mind, but it is not that the pituitary is solely acting as a master gland, rather pituitary's function is also controlled by its superior part, that is the brain, the part of the brain which is hypothalamus. So as I told, hypophysis itself is under the control of hypothalamus. Now if we go for the gross features, the measurement, the dimension of this gland, it is having the length 8 millimeter, breadth 12 millimeter, and weight is 500 milligram. But the most important part here, it is again another structure. Anatomically we should remember this structure, which is having length less than the breadth. Coming to the location, this gland is located in the hypophyseal fossa. Hypophyseal fossa is a bony cavity, a bony seat, which accommodates the pituitary gland along with its coverings over the sphenoid bone, bounded by dorsum celli and tuberculum celli. Superior aspect of the pituitary gland is covered by a dural fold which is termed as diaphragma celli, and the infundibulum of the pituitary gland is connected with the diencephalon, the part of the brain, through the posterior part of the gland. We will come into that later on. So if we see to this MRI section of the brain, this is a sagittal section. So to explain, sagittal section means any section, maybe it's CT or MRI, which goes, or the sections depicting any slices which goes parallel to the sagittal suture of the calvaria. Now if we observe this MRI section, we can find this is anterior, this is posterior, this is nasal cavity, this portion is the musculature of tongue, frontal lobe, occipital lobe. We can find the corpus callosum. Here this is the brain stem, midbrain, pons, medulla. Then it is continued through this foramen magnum as spinal cord. These are the vertebral bodies of upper cervical vertebra, atlas. Then this is the odontoid process of axis. Here we can find this portion of the bone. This is part of the sphenoid, and this black area is having the air filled cavity. This air filled cavity is the sphenoidal air sinus. Now sphenoidal air sinus is forming the floor of this gland, pituitary gland. So this is hypophyseal fossa. Anteriorly there is tuberculum celli, a bony projection. Posteriorly there is dorsum celli, and superiorly this stalk or infundibulum is connecting with the diencephalon. Now this portion is covered by a dural fold, and the coverings of the pituitary gland doesn't have any space in between, so it doesn't contain any cerebrospinal fluid. Now if we see superiorly, it is having connected related with optic chiasma here, somewhere here. There are portions of hypothalamus here. So if the gland is physically causing any pressure symptoms superiorly, then that will cause the pressure symptoms in the structures related to the superior aspect. So moving forward to the parts of this gland, it has got an anterior lobe, or popularly termed as adenohypophysis, and one posterior lobe which is termed as neurohypophysis. These two portions, anterior lobe and posterior lobe, functionally and developmentally are separate. So if we consider development of the anterior lobe, this is developed from the surface ectoderm, from roof of the stomodium. The structure is forming is termed as Rathke's pouch. As it is termed as pouch, it is having a cavity and two wall. So it is a outpouching going superiorly from the stomodium towards the diencephalon. And the anterior wall of this pouch forms the pars anterior of the anterior lobe of adenohypophysis. Posterior wall of the Rathke's pouch forms the pars intermedia of the anterior lobe of adenohypophysis, and the cavity often presents as the intraglandular cleft. Now, one prolongation from the anterior wall that forms the pars tuberalis, which encircles the infundibulum of the pituitary gland. Posterior lobe or neurohypophysis. Developmentally, it is related to the neuroectoderm. This is a diverticulum coming from the floor of the diencephalon. So that this diverticulum is coming downward. The posterior lobe diverticulum is coming downward, developmental background, and the anterior lobe, the Rathke's pouch, this diverticulum is going superiorly from the stomodium, and this fuses to form the complete gland, of which anterior lobe or adenohypophysis is contributed by surface ectoderm, posterior lobe or neurohypophysis is contributed by neuroectoderm. So if we look at the diagram and parts little bit, the anterior lobe, which is this portion, this is posterior lobe. Anterior lobe is highly cellular. It has got clumps of cells, cell masses with fenestrated capillaries. There are some blood channels created in between. These are sinusoids, and these sinusoids are connected with the capillaries, which are the feeding vessels, mainly the superior hypophyseal artery. This gland is presenting one intraglandular cleft. I just explained the developmental background of this intraglandular cleft. An anterior lobe which is having three parts: pars anterior, pars tuberalis, and pars intermedia. Pars anterior is the major portion of the gland. Pars tuberalis is encircling the infundibulum superiorly. This is an extension of the pars anterior. Pars intermedia is the part which is present behind the intraglandular cleft, that is somewhat here. We expect intraglandular cleft here because this diagram showing a section, the cellular clusters arranged inside the gland, inside the parenchyma of the anterior lobe. Blood supply of the anterior lobe is chiefly from the superior hypophyseal artery. These are branches coming from the circle of Willis, internal carotid artery. There is formation of two sets of capillaries, one along this infundibular stalk median eminence region, and then again it is forming the network communication with the sinusoids in the anterior part of the gland. So these two sets of capillaries, when present, they form a portal system. The venous drainage is usually from this capillaries. These veins initiate and they terminate in the cavernous sinus, anterior and posterior intercavernous sinuses. Now if we look at the diagram and the description of the posterior lobe, as it is told, it is continuous above with the infundibulum. So this is posterior lobe, this is continuous above with the infundibulum. This portion is the infundibulum, and there is encircling part of the anterior lobe which is pars tuberalis. Now This infundibulum is connected with the diencephalon, and this posterior lobe is having three parts: median eminence of tuber ciliarium, infundibular stem, and pars nervosa. The blood supply, chief blood supply, is from inferior hypophyseal artery, branch of internal carotid artery, and we can appreciate that there are some cells. This posterior lobe is characterized by presence of unmyelinated nerve fibers, and there are cells which are originating in the hypothalamus, and these cell bodies, these cells, the prolongation of the cells, these actions, they are projecting towards the posterior lobe, and there are some enlarged bulb-like presentation which is termed as herring bodies. They are the mediators of the hormones. They are the mediators of the hormones released from the posterior part of the pituitary gland, but this hormones is not synthesized in the posterior part of the gland, rather it is synthesized in the hypothalamus, and it is stored and carried to the posterior part of the pituitary gland. Now, if we consider the microanatomy of the anterior lobe, the chief cells are basically two types of cells: chromophobe cells, which are agranular, or we can term them as agranular chromophobe cells, and chromophil cells. Now, there are two views regarding the chromophobe cells, as the term mentioned, which is agranular. So that means the cytoplasm doesn't contain any granules which are filled with hormones, the secretory components. So these chromophobe cells, which are agranular, maybe this is a precursor of the chromophil cells, which will eventually form hormone-filled granules and become granular chromophil cells. Or other view is that the chromophil cells, they have depleted all its hormones and eventually depleted of the granules from the cytoplasm, and they become chromophobe cells. Whatever it is, we can expect two types of cells. We can consider two views, but we must know that the two types of cells are present in the anterior lobe. These are agranular chromophobe cells and chromophil cells. Chromophil cells again are of two types. These are acidophil cells and basophil cells. Acidophil cells have been divided into its staining characteristics into some varieties, like somatotrophs, as the name implies. Soma means the body. So somatotroph cells means it is related to the development of the or growth of the body. So the cells are meant for the secretion of growth hormone, and as it is having been stained nicely with orange G stains, the orange G dye staining system, staining method, this is also termed as orangiophil cells. Mammotrophs or carminophil cells, they secrete prolactin, and they having good staining characteristic with azocarmine dye. Now, if we go to the basophil cells, these basophil cells secrete mainly the trophic hormones, and the basic cell types in these basophil cells are beta cells, which secrete TSH or thyroid stimulating hormone, and delta cells, which secrete gonadotrophic hormones like FSH and LH, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. If we consider ACTH or adrenocorticotrophic hormone, this hormone is polypeptide in nature. They are secreted by small cells which form clusters clumped together. They arrange as follicles around a central mass of glycoprotein, and this is regarded as they are of chromophobe variety. Often other scientists or other view is that these are coming from the beta variety of cells, beta cells as of the basophil cells of chromophil cells. There are two views, either maybe coming from chromophobe cells. These views are two different opinions. Just for discussion, I am just mentioning the hormone is polypeptide in nature. It is secreted by small cells and arranged as these cells are arranged as follicles around a central mass of glycoproteins. Coming to the posterior lobe, its features and basic anatomical arrangement. So this posterior lobe is consisting of unmyelinated nerve fibers. There is fenestrated plexus of blood capillaries and a special variety of neuroglial cells present in the posterior lobe, which is termed as pituicytes. Posterior lobe is devoid of blood-brain barrier. This is very important information. Posterior lobe is devoid of blood-brain barrier, And the nerve supply or the neural control of the posterior lobe is from hypothalamo-hypophyseal tract, from supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei of hypothalamus. They secrete nonapeptide hormones, vasopressin and oxytocin. These hormones are synthesized within the cell bodies of hypothalamic neurons. I have already mentioned this. These hormones now stored, they traverse to the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland and stored here. So posterior lobe stores and release the hormone. Amongst this, vasopressin, which is also termed as antidiuretic hormone, this is synthesized in supraoptic nuclei, and paraventricular nuclei synthesize oxytocin. So functions. If you come to the functions of anterior lobe, somatotrophic hormone or growth hormone, they promotes proliferation of cartilage cells of epiphysis. So if there is any derangement or any adenoma involving the increased secretion of growth hormone, if it is before puberty, then there will be a huge growth. So this is termed as gigantism. If this is after the fusion of the epiphyseal cartilages, that is after puberty, then it can cause acromegaly. So these are the terms. Prolactin secretion can be deranged if there is any secretory anomaly in the pituitary gland. Thyrotrophic hormone can cause thyrotoxicosis or hypothyroidism. If the secretion of the thyroid stimulating hormone is less, it is then causing compensatory reactionary response from the thyroid gland. FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, they are meant for maturation of primordial follicles. They recruit primordial follicles in each ovarian cycle, and they help in spermatogenesis also in the seminiferous tubules. Luteinizing hormones, they stimulate ovulation, they stimulate Leydig cells, they produce testosterone. Adrenocorticotropic hormone, they stimulate zona fasciculata and zona reticularis. They are their secretion derangement can give rise to Cushing syndrome, Addison's disease, etc. There is melanocyte cell stimulating hormone. This is considered as a breakdown product of ACTH. So, if we want to conclude the discussion of the pituitary gland, this is a ovoid neuroglandular structure. It is related to the superior aspect of the sphenoid bone. This is located in the sella turcica. Superiorly, it is covered by a dural fold termed as diaphragma celli. There are different diseases related to the deranged secretion from the pituitary gland. Management of this pituitary adenomas or different disorders which can cause pressure symptoms of the adjacent structure can be surgical management. Surgical management can have the transnasal approach, transnasal, transsphenoidal hypophysectomy can be done. This is an endoscopic surgery, and the role of endoscopic surgery is immense here in these situations. And medical management with different medicines like some steroids, mainstay of therapy is steroids here in hormonal disorders are available. So overall, this is the discussion on the pituitary gland. This is the sphenoidal sinus, air sinus. This is cavernous sinus. This is internal carotid artery. Here this is the pituitary gland. This portion is covered by the diaphragma celli. This is infundibulum. Here we can expect the optic chiasma, optic tract. This is third ventricle. So this is a coronal section of the pituitary gland region, of cavernous sinus region. So again, if we come to the MRI section of the brain, sagittal section of the brain, which I showed in the beginning, then we can expect that this is pituitary gland, and this pituitary gland is quite sizable. I don't know the patient is having any enlargement because the measurement is not here, and this is one sagittal section depicting the corpus callosum, brainstem, pharynx, nasopharynx region, pituitary gland, delineating nice outlines. So that is all about this discussion of pituitary gland. So this was all about the pituitary gland. Suggested reading is any textbook of anatomy. So thank you all.